in the agreement, one of which was the fact that none of us would be in a position where we all agreed that working with the ANC would not be feasible, given that we all entered into this game to shake up the establishment so the South Africans could have a new government. I mean, it is similar to having had one person who has been in government for the last 40 years. It's just that in South Africa, we have had different heads, but the same political party, but the principle is the same. And so, nobody could ever be held at gunpoint. I mean, even in a marriage, you do have, the right to exercise your choice if and when you change your mind. And that's what happened, with the other political parties who were part of the multi-party charter. They chose their way, and then so we also chose our way. And that's also fine, right? Because at the end of the day, people do have their constituencies and they wanted to go the way that they did. We gave it a best shot. We went into the multi-party charter in good faith and it hasn't worked out. It's time for us now to chart a new way forward as Action SA on our own.
What does a new way forward look like among the parties that are on the lower end of the spectrum when it comes to the votes that they've received? So how is the working together going to look like, Makashule? What is your thinking now as you plan towards the first sitting that has to take place within 14 days? That sitting is going to elect a speaker. That sitting is going to elect a president. Your vote is going to have to be registered in that sitting.
Yeah. So there are a number of things. One is what happens in the first sitting that elects the speaker and the president, and looking at what's in the best interest of South Africa at that particular moment. But the possibilities after the constitution of the National Assembly, members are sworn in, the president is elected, the speaker is elected, for collaboration with other political parties that will not be part of the, let's say, because it's not a foregone that you'll have a government of national unity. That is just a position that the ANC puts. That is their starting negotiating position. Where things will be on Sunday, none of us know. It could be that you have a watered-down version because of everyone has got a constituency. But let's say we accept that was to be the decision.
Ghana, I'm going to pause you there.
All
I'll
right.
give you a chance to continue in a moment. You're listening to the talking point. We're talking to some of the new entrants to Parliament represented under the new party, 7 new parties that will have the opportunity of sending legislators to Parliament for the very first time. It's 10:30. Time for your latest news headlines.
Thank you very much, Cathy, and a very good morning. With the news headlines, the DA says it will only agree to be part of the ANC's proposed government of national unity if the MK party, the EFF, and the PA are excluded. The Nelson Mandela Bay Metropolitan Municipality in the Eastern Cape says it will request 155 million rand from National Treasury. And the man convicted of raping and murdering the UCT student Uyinene Mkhejana will be back in court today in another case. Details of these and other stories coming up at 11.
Bye. The rand is currently trading at 18 rand 85 to the dollar, 24 rand 12 to the pound, and 20 rand 54 to the euro. Markets in Asia were mixed at the closing bell. The JSE is mainly higher in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe have extended losses. Gold is trading at $2,362, platinum $1,006 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $79.89 a barrel.
Channel the best father you can be on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3. As psychologist Clint Maggot offers effective coping strategies for men's mental health. Get tips on saving and investing for your child's education. And hear how Dr. Anza Chipetane shapes bright young leaders. That's Afternoon Express this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
When the 5 years on your Audi Freeway plan comes to an end, what's next for your Audi journey? Extend your cover with the Audi Freeway Plan Extension. Get uninterrupted service excellence and continued peace of mind for up to 15 years or 300,000 kilometers. Or choose Audi Value Service, a convenient and affordable plan which covers your servicing needs over 2 years or 30,000 kilometers. Keep your Audi with Audi and experience value beyond tomorrow. Visit audi.co.za to find out more.
Do you remember the cool times of Sports Buzz?
Coming up on Sports
Buzz used to be the go-to young people sports show in Mzansi, Africa. The multi-sport award-winning youth magazine show. A great platform that profiled young athletes and teams. The glory days of Sports Buzz are back in a newly revamped youth sports show with a wow vibe. Goats like us. Yeah, goats. Greatest of all time. Experience youth excellence in sport. Profiling of active athletes and teams. Latest news in the world of youth sport. The active voice of school sport and promoting a healthy lifestyle among the youth. Do not miss out on Goats Like Us. Your front row seat awaits you every Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag Goats, greatest of all time. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We continue the conversation on The Talking Point. My guest this hour, Magashule Ghana, Chief Organizer, Rise Mzansi. He's heading to Parliament. So is Lerato Ngobeni, the National Spokesperson of Action SA. And we're talking about the role of these parties and what it is that these individuals are going to be bringing to the National Assembly. Magashule, I was speaking to you about what happens then in that first sitting, where a speaker has to be appointed, a president has to be appointed. As Razim Mzansi, even though you're not part of the fray right now, your vote in that sitting is going to be crucial because we don't know which way things will go. Every vote is going to matter. That's where it's going to count. So how are you, as the smaller parties, aligning? Are you aligning at all? What is your approach for that first sitting?
So I wouldn't say at the moment we have developed an approach to that first sitting because conversations are still happening, and it will start clearing by the end of the weekend in terms of the direction where things are going. But in any case, our vote, when one vote, because one will be there, will be guided by looking at the candidates and who's in the best interest of South Africa, given where we are. But what I was saying in terms of the possibilities for other parties that will not be part of the whatever, whether it's a coalition or it's a GNU, is that it opens the space in the opposition, and that's something that we are looking forward to provide the kind of for the what I would call, for a lack of a better word, a rational center opposition to South Africa that talks about the South Africa that we need to build for the future, from opposition benches. There's a space. There's going to be a space because whoever decides to go into a GNU or coalition, they are sitting. You can't be in the GNU and still say that you are an official opposition. So if someone decides to go to the GNU, decides to go to a coalition, then you are losing your status as the official opposition, which then means there's a space open. And we are looking forward to occupying that space to represent South Africans who say, we have been failed for 30 years. We don't believe that these are the guys that will take us to the future. And that's the kind of things that we are starting to think about. Because one, I know others will want to be maybe part of the coalition and then say, but we are also an opposition party. You can't be both. You can't wear both hats.
Look, and it's something that the DA has been asked extensively about in the past week, to say, well, how is this going to work? How are you going to hold the ANC accountable when you and if you help them form a government? They believe that there are ways in which they would be able to separate those responsibilities. But of course, it does muddy the waters, right?
So they'll change the shoes every day. So today they were a government, tomorrow they were opposition, and maybe midday they change. It's a difficult one. I doubt if the shoes will fit properly after being worn a couple of times.
So, Lerato, what are you anticipating amongst yourselves as political parties that are also new players when it comes to the national stage? What do you think that working relationship is going to be like?
Well, look, I think, we've been, competing with one another leading up to the election. We've all worked very hard to harvest support in different communities. And now the time for electioneering is over. I know we're going to go to elections again in 2 years' time. But for now, we've got to make sure that, we do good to the promises that we made to South Africa as we were canvassing, their support. And so for us, it is about collaboration. It is about bringing new ideas into the space in terms of policy innovation and diversity. We do want to influence legislation where we believe that, changes in different types of legislation or introduction of new legislation that is going to represent the views of South Africans as we see them and as we canvass them. One of the things that we announced the other day is that the People's Dialogue is a framework through which we came into being. And we kind of left it behind for a while because we were implementing the outcomes of that People's Dialogue process that was started in 2019. Now we need to revive that and solicit a wider range of views in terms of how we should move forward. That roadshow is coming through, and that will give us data and information as to how South Africans want us to serve them. And so we will be willing to talk to anyone, communicate with anyone, and coalesce with anyone around those ideas that we believe are going to move South Africa forward. We have no problem with who it is. We're not just going to oppose for the sake of opposing. Our posture is that as long as it benefits South Africans, we will not care as to who proposes that legislation, irrespective of our views towards whether they are ideological position or whether they are opposed to ourselves as a political party. So our posture is that of collaboration, and we are committed to that. And in fact, we are looking forward to that because it's going to be important in this time when some people, will be focusing on whether they're horse trading or whether they are hedging their bets. Ours will be, again, as we said, to be constructive and to move forward, to call things out when they're wrong and to compliment them when they're right.
Magashule, one of the things that we saw political parties struggle with is standing out. Every party that is represented in Parliament wants to find a way of standing out. There are different tactics that different parties employ in order to do that. How are you going to stand out? What do you think is going to make you stand out?
So what will make us stand out is the work that will, or the amount of work that we put into what we are doing in Parliament. It's not for us to grandstand when there are sittings so that people can see that Magashule is in the room, but it's the work that, or the amount of time that one spends ensuring that we hold the government accountable, we do our work diligently, we report back to the people that have elected us, and the people that maybe at the time that the elections were happening, they did not think that they will, vote for us, but now they are drifting closer to us. So we will, how we account, how we do our work will always be the most prepared team in Parliament when we go to committees, because that's where the bulk of the work is done. It's not done in the plenary. So you will see the work that we do in committees, what we are able to find in terms of how the government is spending our money, because it is our money, and all that. Over time, because of consistency in doing these things, we are going to stand out. We don't want to go into, say, first sitting of Parliament, and you are like, but Rise Mzansi didn't stand out. Mm-hmm. It's our first day. It's our first day. We're not going to start. This is like running the comrade, and I wish all the comrade runners all the best on Sunday. I will not be there. This is like running the comrades. It's not about how quick you start. You are able to finish the comrades in a good state when you are consistent on the road, doing the things that needs to be done without getting too excited. So for us, we are not going there to be excited, to play to the gallery, but we are there to represent South Africans, ensuring that every cent that government has collected from us, it's used for the benefit of South Africans, to keep South Africans safe, to ensure that South Africans are prosperous, South Africans are equal, and together we can be united as a country.
Does that mean that you're going to be showing up for more than 80% of the sittings of Parliament? By the way, which is an issue for our parliamentarians. Half the time they're not there. And yet this is supposed to be their full-time job.
Rise Mzansi will be there.
Attendance rate? What is the attendance rate that you as Rise Mzansi are holding yourself to?
Minimum 80%.
Why not 100%?
Because there are other things that happen. So one day you wake up, it's windy, it's cold. Now you can't go to the sitting. So
because it's windy and it's cold.
No, you've got a cold. That's what I was saying. You've got a cold, and you know there are other things. There are things that happen that you might not. You want to do 100%. When I was in the legislature myself, my attendance was almost 100%. You can ask anyone whether I missed the committee meeting. Because for me, for us, we take this task seriously. It's a job to serve South Africans. It's an honor. It's a privilege to be able to serve South Africans as members of parliament.
All right. Let me bring in some of our listeners to this conversation. Mawande, you are in the Eastern Cape. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Sis Cathy, and also good morning to both the leaders. First, let me say, my sister, I'm happy with the position of Action SA. The reason I'm happy with their position is that when they pronounce that they are not going to be part of the government of national unity. Because if you do that, the danger that we are getting in is for us to kill our functional democracy, because there will be no one who would hold the executive to account, and also for transparency. In other words, accountability will just be phased away. Then the second issue that I like about them, let me trust them, although that I know that in Parliament there will be only 6. But because as people who have physical impairments, people with disabilities, that Action SA is one of the parties that they raise supple the issues of disability and accommodate people with disabilities. We trust them that the 3% that the government speak about in terms of accommodating us in the public service, that it will be implemented, because they are there, because we have been abused by the ANC and the DA for the past 30 years, because they haven't said anything about us. Lastly, I'm worried about Rise Mzansi, because they do not have a position on the government of national unity. It's like they are mumbling, like Mam Patricia Delin, who was mumbling for the past 5 years, because she looks whether there will be a better bread on this side or a bad bread on this side. If they have a position, they must tell us, South Africans, what is their position and what are their reasons if they support the government of national unity or not. Thank you.
Thanks, Mawande. Let me go to Cape Town. Buka, and if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, I do apologize. Good morning.
Good morning, Katie. No, you are pronouncing very correctly.
Okay, great. All right.
Yes, I'm in Australia, Katie. I'm in Australia, Katie. Good morning to your guest, Katie. Good morning to your guest. Katie, I would just like to comment about this. Where does this term of a national unity government coming from, Katie? Because at the moment, we don't have a national unity government. The ANC is going with coalition with other parties. National unity, we must remember, it was gazetted before 1994. And that national unity government was gazetted, and it was also constituted. This is a coalition government, Katie. It's not a national unity. We've been true to democracy already. It's just that now the ANC, the governing party, didn't get a majority vote. Then they have to do coalition with other parties. So I don't know where do this term comes from, Cathy. I really don't know. I think, Cathy, the best for the governing party, because ANC is still the governing party, the majority, is to do coalition with other parties. But for us as majority of South Africans, I believe that the DA, Cathy, is not an option.
Okay, Buka, let's leave it there. Buka out in Cape Town. Bongani, you're in Jeffreys Bay. Good morning.
Yes, hello, Kathy. Coalitions in South Africa, I think we've seen them in Johannesburg and Nelson Mandela Bay. Have we not seen them? When they were working there, they were always doing a motion of no confidence, trying to always outsmart each other, not working in good confidence. We didn't know who is the mayor of Johannesburg. Even today, they were changing every 2 minutes. Every 2 minutes, they are taking each other to court. The work of the city is not being done. The politicians are playing politics. But at the end of the month, what are they getting in their bank accounts? They are getting their salaries. Who is paying their salaries? Us. The taxpayers, you and me, the listeners, the taxpayers. Nelson Mandela Bay, we didn't know who is the mayor. What are they doing? They are not working. They are changing each other's mayors. They are fighting. They are taking each other out. We have seen them put an example for us how the coalitions are going to work. Many people are very dissatisfied with the result of these elections. I don't know why we cannot hear in the radio talks of rerunning the election, number one, or a referendum, or we can do something that will give us a majority so that accountability will be taking place. My fear is we are going to be paying them full salaries at the end of every month. Although they're not going to work, they're going to fight.
Although, Bongani, in fairness, right, what we often speak about are the coalition governments that don't work at a local level. But the reality is that there are a significant number of coalition governments in this country that do work, that are formed at a local level. There's a long list of examples, Bongani. But the challenge that we're sitting with is that in the economic centers where coalitions have had to be formed, they have failed, and that could well be because there's a lot more at stake. There's a lot more the idea of patronage that needs to be.
You can't even name two that have worked. You can't even name two that have worked. The politician, the behavior of this country, they are always taking each other to court and they earn full salary at the end of the month. Our taxpayers' money, where we pay the people for fighting in the office and not doing service delivery.
Look, Bongani, a classic example would be what happened in Ekurhuleni, right? The ANC was in coalition in Ekurhuleni with the AIC for a very long time, and that coalition held. It was only in recent years that the coalition, this is post-2021, that the coalition there suddenly began to crumble. But then you also have different players that were involved in that coalition.
We're going to pay people full salaries.
There are examples of coalitions in the Western Cape that have held. So the point is that sometimes the conversation is not just about the fact that it won't work, but the parties that are involved in the coalition very much have a role to play in whether the coalition works or not. But let me get the views of our guests. Lerato, do you want to weigh in on that?
Cathy, I think also, we need to frame the responses adequately. There's a Chinese saying that says, if you want to solve a problem, you must call it by its real name. The issue is not that coalitions don't work. The issue is that political parties are using, their constituencies and the power of their constituencies as their own individual political weapons. And South Africans are the ones who need to tell us how it is they want us to work together. Now, they have already said so. in this election to say, we're not giving all of you a majority. We do want a reflection of some kind of stability, which is why the ANC has got the margins that it has, and for us to be able to come back to the table and say how it is where we're going to work together. Let me give you an example of, there's a couple of examples, and of course you'll always get criticism about, no, this is first world country. People are people, whether they live in first world countries or not. What is important is, for example, Angela Merkel, when she was chancellor between 2005 and 2021, she led a coalition government, and that was a successful coalition government. The Netherlands are running a coalition government that is a success. What is important is to say, now that the electorate has come back to us with these margins, what programs and policies are we going to put in place, and capacitations of instruments of government that are going to advance the will of the South African people. That is all what the coalition conversation should be, not the horse trading, not who's going to get what position, not who is going to use whatever position they get in the coalition government or in the GNU government to amass their own, political powers and their own political influence. And that is the conversation South Africans need to have. We cannot have a government that forever prioritizes its own will as opposed to the will of the South African people. What is the will of South African people? South African people want to be secure. They want better education. They want to live in a country where they've got greater opportunities for upward mobility. They want to live in communities where the infrastructure is good so that they can sustain their own lives. If you look at it, rationally, Cathy, without all of this politicking, that is not a lot to ask. And so what is important is for us as politicians to make that happen and to fight for that. And at the end of the day, if we don't get to do that, we will continue on this erosion of our political environment.
All right.
And so when we go to Parliament, that is what really we are going to be wanting to put, on the table. And that's the conversation that should be had, in our view.
Magashule?
So my take, it's not the coalition it's not the, let's call it, the need for coalitions that make things not to happen. It's the people that are not mature when they get into coalition discussion and coalition government, because it's failed by the people. So if the people themselves are in it for positions, then we are not going anywhere. That's why for us, maybe to the question to say, but give Rise Mzansi to say you are for or against the GNU. At the moment, the parameters of the GNU are not known. So someone just announced, we are going to look at the GNU. What are the parameters? What are the principles? So one cannot say I'm against something that hasn't been fully described. And if we are asked to say, all right, Rise Mzansi, you were campaigning for the need for new leaders. You were campaigning to create a safe, prosperous, equal and united South Africa. What should be the guiding principles of any government, given the moment that we are in, is the issues of ensuring that the Constitution continues to be the supreme law, to ensure that South Africans are safe, is to ensure that we make the economy to work for all the people of this country, to ensure that the issues of energy and logistics work so that people can get jobs, they can buy food for their families and their children, and ensure that there are other priorities in education and other areas that needs to prioritize. That's what if we are asked that question, we are not going to say no, we are not part of the GNU, therefore we cannot give an answer in terms of what are the urgent priorities for government. So we have decided that we are not closing the door on anyone coming to us to us and ask us, what is your view in terms of where South Africa is right now? How do we build a South Africa that all South Africans feel safe? We will answer to those questions. We will answer them in Parliament, because we are going to Parliament. We'll continue to answer them in our daily work in Parliament. So we are not closing the door, because this thing is not about us. We are not doing this for Rise Mzansi or myself as Magashule. This, when all is said and done, has to be done for the people of this country.
We're going to continue the conversation in a moment. I think just a further response to our listener earlier on the issue of coalition governments. So if you look at the research that was done by MISTRA, Professor Susan Boyson and her colleagues really did a sterling job taking a deep dive into the success rate of coalitions and what has made them work, what has made them not work. The majority of coalition governments formed after the local government elections of 2021 have been largely stable. And you will see there's a long list from, Umdoni Msunduzi, Alfred Duma, Governor Mbeki, Steve Chwete. Please go and read the report. Find it on the Mistra website. It's the Coalition Barometer Summary. Find it and go through it. And that, I think, will also give a different perspective. Denzel, you're calling us from Kimberley. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. I don't like to talk politics on a Friday, but I was triggered. Cathy, structural failure needs to collapse. This GNU, it will collapse. And I commend these two parties for not taking part of it. That is why I was going to vote for Action SA. They were campaigning these political parties. They were all over in the communities. Where are they now? They are in the offices deciding for the people. I would love everyone just to stay opposition and work it from there.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that view. Lerato, before going into this election, a lot of political parties, were speaking along the lines of we must vote the ANC, or we must take the ANC out of power. For the first time in history, with just 40% of the vote, there is an opportunity for opposition parties in this country to do that. So if you truly wanted, all opposition parties could come together and take the ANC out. Why does that not seem to be an option on the table? Why is it that the opposition seems to be so far apart from each other?
That's a question that I think all of us are grappling with. If you look at the number of political parties that must come together, the politics of personality, people can't discount them. That is really, I think, in our view, that is really what is happening. As Action SA, I can tell you, even before these elections, and this is why we were actually even part of the multi-party charter in the first place, is that, we tried to communicate and try to say to, those of us who are like us and with like-mindedness around how we want the country to go forward. If you look at, our policy frameworks, we all want a safe, prosperous and successful South Africa and all of these things. But, in my view, we definitely in our experience found that our problem is that everyone in this country wants to lead. And that is the humility that we all need to be able to come together and say, who is going to be the best person to represent us, irrespective of who they might be. And so, this is the difficulty that we're all facing. And so I think, there definitely is room and space for those who are like-minded. And I think that was the case for us coalescing, or for us even going into the multi-party charter. We wanted to make that type of example. But unfortunately, I can tell you, the politics of personality can't be misjudged.
Ghana, in your view, what stands in the way there, very briefly?
So, at least from our side, there are parties that wants to, let's say, no longer agree with the constitutional democracy or the supremacy of the constitution as the first thing, as the starting point. We can't agree with it. Doesn't matter that just because we say the ANC must be out, then it doesn't mean that we must agree with everyone that says, all right, we don't want the constitution must go, and they must deal with parliamentary majority. We might agree to say the ANC must go, but we don't agree with you. Therefore, we can't work with you. We can't agree with people that says you must bring the death penalty back. We can't, because the constitution is clear. It has pronounced on that. So just because someone who is against the constitution has got elected, now we must go and agree with them because we hate the ANC. This clubbing for the sake of, all right, the ANC is out of power, then you realize that, no, actually, we don't agree. I don't agree with people who don't want the constitution. I don't agree with people who want the death penalty or who don't want to recognize the rights of the LGBTQI community. We don't agree with them. So we can't then say, no, let's coalesce for the sake of keeping the ANC out. And then after coalescing, someone comes and say, no, we no longer want the constitution.
All right.
Let's do away with the constitution. So, but thank you to all the South Africans who voted for Rise Mzansi, and thanks to you for having me here.
Makashule Ghana of Rise Mzansi, Lerato Ngobeni, Action SA, thank you for your time this morning.
Top stories this hour: the DA on the ANC's proposed government of national unity, and Nelson Mandela Bay to request millions from Treasury. Very good morning to you. The DA says it'll only agree to be part of the ANC's proposed government of national unity if the MK Party, EFF, and the PA are excluded. Yesterday, ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa announced that the party was seeking to form a government of national unity with a broad group of opposition parties. It has laid down stringent conditions under which the parties would be included in this pact. The DA says it hopes that it'll get the details of how the government of national unity will work in its next meeting with the ANC. DA spokesperson Werner Horn.
The President was not very specific in terms of the characteristics of such a government of national unity. We will hopefully get some more detail from them, and then the duty of that negotiating team will be to bring the specifics back to the federal executive, and on Monday the federal council will have to decide. But even the smallest way of including those three parties will, in terms of the current resolution of the federal executive, make it very difficult, if not impossible, for us to be included.
Meanwhile, political analyst Chris Landsberg has described as shocking some people's claims that the ANC's proposed government of national unity is a non-starter because there's no unity. He says there was no unity back in 1994.
But what the ANC should now do, formalize it, get the teams of people together. I will be the first to say I will be surprised that everybody who's invited will stay into a government of national unity. But the idea of a GNU is now on the table. It's got to be tested. And I wouldn't be surprised if some will walk out along the way and say this is not for us.
The Nelson Mandela Bay municipality in the Eastern Cape says it'll request 155 million rand from the National Treasury. It says it'll use the money to assist the more than 3,000 displaced people and to repair damaged infrastructure following the floods. The municipality took the decision during a council meeting in Gqeberha yesterday. Executive Mayor Gary van Niekerk says they've already identified land on which to build houses for the victims.
We are now going to use that money with the blessing of the Minister of Culture and Human Settlements for this disaster. What we need to get now is to get pockets of land. We've already identified pockets of land. The land, some of them are municipal land and some is public works land. But you know the processes in terms of government, local government being so heavily, some would say over-regulated. We're going to fast track all those processes to ensure that people are moved out of these halls.
The funeral service of celebrity chef Thembekile Letlape is underway in Bryanston in the north of Joburg. Letlape, who was commonly known as the pastry princess, has been described as a loving and caring person. Her body was found at her partner's house on Thursday last week. Her boyfriend, Sbusiso Zita, appeared in the Randburg Magistrates Court in connection with the murder, and the case was postponed to the 13th of this month. The 40-year-old was arrested after being on the run for several days. 2 more people have also been arrested in connection with the crime. Letlape's brother-in-law, Brent Dusing.
God gives us all superpowers. All of us have them. Tempe had a lot of them. She was good at so many things. You know, she went to UCT. I mean, my goodness, she was in finance, banking, baking. She was highly intuitive. She was well-read. You could talk to her about anything. But you know, her biggest superpower was that she had so many friends and relatives that she loved and cared about. Especially, she cared deeply about the children around her, and she got that from her parents.
And the man convicted of raping and murdering UCT student Uyinene Mohlahlana will be back in court today in another case. The High Court in Cape Town had sentenced Luyanda Botha to 3 life terms for the murder of the 19-year-old student. Her murder sparked public outrage. Botha will appear in the Wynberg Magistrates Court after being charged with the attempted rape of a 21-year-old woman at a nursing college in Athlone in June 2014. The state alleges that Botha visited the woman at the institution and attempted to rape her, but she was able to fight him off. NPA spokesperson Eric Ntabazalila.
He appeared in court on the 10th of May 2024, and his case has been postponed until the 7th of June 2024, where the state will continue with the testimony of one of its witnesses.
The top story this hour, the DA says it'll only agree to be part of the ANC's proposed Government of National Unity if the MK Party, EFF, and the PA are excluded. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemele.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
Channel your inner adventurer on Top Travel this Saturday night at 8:30 on S3 as we're bathing in mud on an Eastern Cape safari. Blackwater tubing Storms River, free-falling over Plet having the time of our lives, cooking with South Africa's trailblazing salt chefs, and searching for the world's only whale crier in Hermanus. That's Top Travel this Saturday night at 8:30, repeat Sunday at 1 p.m. on S3.
When my son was accepted for national championships, I wasn't prepared for the costs. Then I remembered that Cash Converters has a 30-day cash advance loan. Just go to your nearest Cash Converters store with your jewelry, electronics, tech, or something valuable. They'll keep it safe for you and you'll walk out with the cash you need. This loan made it possible for my son's dreams to come true. Now I'm a proud mom of a champion. Cash Converters. We buy, we sell, we loan cash.
Makaka searching for their first victory to cement their plan of returning to the rooftop of Ibhola laseMzansi. Yet, the Natal Rich Boys believe that tears of joy belong to them. This is the Premier Soccer League promotional playoffs. Catch Baroka FC versus Richards Bay FC this Saturday, 8 June at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays 9 a.m. till midday.
Says Cathy. The guy today. Look, I don't think either coalition or unity government will work. There is too much history between these parties. Very bad history. EFF, MK, DA list. I think you must agree, all the parties must agree go for re-election, or those people who didn't vote, they must vote so that they can make the majority vote and someone must win.
I agree wholeheartedly with what Delarose is saying, and this whole week SAFM in particular has just allowed people to vent with respects to this government of national unity and the negativity without actually interrogating the facts behind it. To be realistic, the Democratic Alliance is not an apartheid party. They don't have apartheid policies. So whether the ANC want to work with the EFF or with Konto Isizwe or the DA, it is actually their prerogative. But we need to put South Africa first, and there are just a lot of uninformed opinions and people shooting from the hip, which is not necessarily accurate. And SAFM need to interrogate this as well, and not just allow people to spew views that don't align with the facts.
Hi, this is Cathy. It's Doomsy from Cape Town. Politics is about contestation of ideas, and as such, governments of national unity never work. They try to smoothen the road so that the contestations are not as robust. So I don't think it's a good idea, especially when we are facing a crisis like we have of gross inequality. We can't have capitalists forming a government of national unity with communists or socialists. It won't work. We need these ideas to fully develop. Let there be robust debate. As long as there is no violence, let there be robust debate until we get to the finality. Victory is certain for the poor and the marginalized.
Morning, Cathy. No, this government of national unity, it's something that I call expediency. Now, expediency is good for now, but disastrous for tomorrow. Expediency we saw with COVID, bringing vaccines. Today people are crying. I'm happy, man. Any revolutionary like me, you must be patient. We are patient. Come 2026, ANC is DA, D is ANC. We can see that. Because ANC can have numbers without the DA. But because they are beholden to where the DA is held, they have no other choice. Thank you. Vuyan Orange Farm.
Good morning, Osketi, and good morning to your guests. Osketi, let us tell the truth. We know that the paycheck is now secured. How much are they to get when they get to parliament? These Molanyana parties, they don't care if they talk to them, they don't talk to them. As long as they are going to parliament, they are going to get their paycheck to secure their big cars, their big houses. That's all that matters to them now. They are not going to worry about what happened in KZN, the floods and all those kind of things. They care about their paycheck. That's all.
Hi, Cathy. This is KM. You know what, Cathy? It's really painful. These politicians, they are just out for themselves. It's self-serving. All of them. They don't care about the people of South Africa. People of South Africa are lacking. They don't have houses. They don't have water. They don't have electricity. Others are far away from the schools. But the hospitals is a mess. But they are just there for their own sake. They say they don't want coalition. They don't want national unity. What is that they want? People are waiting for service delivery and the appropriate one. Thank you very much.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
We continue the conversation on the talking point. You're listening to SAFM. And in this hour, of course, we're going to take a bit of a lighter approach when it comes to elections 2024. We're reflecting on the campaign trail, the highs, the lows, and the absolute no's. Now that we have run the election, I want to get your reflections on what you saw on the campaign trail. I must say, one of the moments that stood out for me in this election that I won't forget will be the ANC, of course, took on this campaign of hashtag ANC volunteers, and there's a volunteer near you. And suddenly you saw members of the ANC doing all sorts of things, right? You had, in some instances, ministers that were in people's kitchens cooking pap, helping people cook pap. In some instances, you have videos of ministers that were helping to wash people's clothes, found them doing laundry, joined in, started doing the laundry with them. And it really just shows how ridiculous it can get on the campaign trail. But what were some of the moments for you that stood out, that you saw and you just thought, well, what is going on here? and the impassioned pleas from political parties for us to give them their votes. We played it earlier, but Kauda Muzoneng was one of those for me who I thought there was, in one video, he was pleading, begging South Africans, mvoteleni hle. Despite all of those efforts, it has come to naught. So that's really the tone that we're going to strike for this hour. In studio with me is Cathy Mohlahlana. He's a comedian. Cathy, good morning to you. Thank you so much.
Hi. I love your voice. You got this calm voice.
Oh, really? Thank you so much.
I love it. Great show, by the way. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Yes.
And we decided to get naughty, which is why we've invited somebody like you in here. It's been tense. We need to,
I hope you don't regret it.
Cathy, as long as I don't end up at the BCCSA after this.
The infamous BCCSA. I don't know of any broadcaster who's never been there. Everybody that I know has been to the BC. So tell me, when last were you at the BCCSA? Oh, that was last week.
Exactly.
What happened? Oh, well, I invited a comedian. Exactly. Well... You've called it upon yourself, didn't you?
You see, I think my bosses are tired of writing to the BCCSA on my behalf and trying to explain my behavior.
You should have that. That thing, that clip where you say my comment as a comedian belong to me and me only. They don't belong to SAFM or the SABC. You should play that first.
At least you've given us the disclaimer. At least you've given us the disclaimer. So here's just some reflections of what happened on the campaign trail.
Yeah.
When we're done with playing just some of these clips, I want to hear from you. What were your highlights of this election? Remember, as our listeners, the number you can dial in on 086 000 2032, 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, you can send through those messages on 0614 104 107. So the things that made you laugh, the things that made you cry, the things that made you smile, I'd love to hear from you on that. So first, here's a bit of what happened on the road to elections 2024.
Another 5 years, it's up to you. But humanity, enough is enough. We say now with our vote, and we go and persuade everybody ukuthi lo unyaka wamanqamu sikhipha amasela sifake i-IP emadleni ngoba sifuna ukubona izwe lethu. Let us save South Africa. Let us remove a government that has failed our youth.
Hawu yabhaza umkhondo kuwa ndoda kuwa mani
Slave Queen isona samo Gauteng chelete ne ba fa di Slave Queen ba fa chelete as chaba ba fa di Slave Queen. No more money for Slave Queens. Done. We've taken the purse. The purse is gone.
So, Cathy, your highlights of this election?
I got multiple highlights, man. Started with IFP. I don't know. Or maybe just me as a comedian, but I don't think South Africans were aware. IFP had a dead person on their poster. I'm like, whoa, is this what we're doing now? And then because IFP knows now we're scared of people that have passed on, then they blackmail us into voting for IFP. They're like, do it for Shenge. Yeah, but nah. So now if you don't do it for Shenge, Ushengo will spugel us, and then he's gonna come back. I'm like, oh what, guys? I'm like, oh what? So that those were some of my highlights. You know what I mean?
It was for continuity.
Yeah. And then with the EFF, it's amazing, EFF. I just love how EFF at the last elections, most of their votes came from Zuma, from MK. You know what I mean? And then now in this election, Zuma sent the repo guys to go repossess the votes. I'm like, what?
And the EFF seems very surprised by the MK vote. Well, not just them. Everybody seems very surprised by the MK vote. They've come in and sort of stolen everybody's lunch.
Yes, same thing with the Vryheid Front. I think they call Freedom Front Plus, whatever. Because in the last elections, they stole votes from DA. And this time around, the DA also sent the repo guy to take the votes back. I'm like, what? But the elections are just amazing as well. Like, I love how MK was like, we want to negotiate with Ramaphosa's ANC. But now they're changing the tune. They're like, yeah, but ANC azange sithumele iletter. Thina sitholange iletter yokusibiza lana ukuthi sokhuluma. Like, what do they think this is? Lobola negotiations. So now ANC must send 3 elders to the MK house with a vulamlomo. And then all back right it now letter city.
Well, one can actually see how the MK would foresee such a scenario unfolding, because of course it means that they're coming to them. So it's a power dynamic, right? So you are at our mercy.
Talking about that, it's funny how I was listening to SAFM obviously last night. I think between 11 and 12 midnight when the ANC. National Executive Committee were announcing the plan forward that it's going to be the government of national unity. I love how they said, these are the parties we're going to work with, and then this is how they listed them. They're like EFF, IFP, NFP, PA, and DA. The DA was the last one. Like, we were not going to be aware that the DA was there. The DA was a glass. Like, hey, we saw that. We saw that. Because now it's just it's interesting that the ANC's partners, the SACP and COSATU, they don't want the DA, the ANC to work with the DA because it'll be betraying the workers' rights. The workers' rights will be a stake. But the DA is like, actually, we created more jobs than all the parties involved. I'm like, what are you talking about? Which jobs are these? Are these the white jobs? Because, the unemployment rate in the country is 33%. But I think the unemployment rate within the white community is probably like 3%. I'm yet to meet an unemployed white person. You know what I mean? And I think...
But they're there. They are there. They do exist. The Stats SA figures tell us as much.
Yeah, but I doubt. But my point is that no one trusts the DA. You know what I mean? Because the DA is like that guy. It's like that white guy that says, oh, I'm not racist. I have a black friend. You have that one black friend for insurance, just in case people say you're racist. You know what I mean? And then it's amazing. Like the space that we're in, it's amazing. Like now we'll next time you go to the Department of Labor, when you're there to claim your UIF money, you'll find some of the ministers there on the queue. Naledi Panda will be there. She's unemployed. Peggy Kele will be there, he's unemployed. Lindiwe Zulu will be there, they're unemployed. It's crazy. And then I think as South Africans, we're excited. Like, yeah, let them feel how being unemployed is like. It's the same thing as when the Minister of Transport, Chikunga, got robbed at the N3. She was very shocked. But as South Africans, we're very happy. Like, yeah, I feel the taste. Just because it's like because they're VIPs, they don't know the lives that your average South African lives, you know what I mean? So it's good that they get to feel
and I've noticed that lots of people have been joking about this job security situation, especially in Parliament, because parties have lost seats in Parliament. The parties, the ANC, the EFF, they've lost seats, including some of the other smaller parties.
No, true. The EFF lost a few seats, but ANC is like 71. And I think, you know what they should do? They should the current minister of labor should also lose his job so he can know how it feels to not have a job. You know what I mean? And then you have Gayton McKenzie, who's very shocked, that the colored communities, the colored celebrities didn't endorse him, because apparently reached out to like your Trevor Noah, to Tyler, to Ronwen Williams, to wait for Nicker, but they're like, but no.
Why does this sound like a bad idea from the get go?
But I love that he's sticking to his own guns. It's like, no, we want, if we are to get into the government of national unity, we need to get the post for the Minister of Home Affairs, He's sticking to his guns, and also the Minister of Police as well. So, I had him pinchan.
But Gidiboni, I imagine that a season like this is probably just it's like Christmas for you as comedians, because there's content everywhere. There's stuff that I'm sure you look at, and as you interpret every day, you're writing material for days and days on end.
It's comedy gold. We call it comedy gold. You know what I mean? It's just joke after joke. Some of the things are not even jokes. Like, I was so happy when I saw ANC delivering services during the election campaign. You know, I literally saw. I'm like, wow, that's ANC delivering services. I saw like some homeless guys making fire in Joburg City Center using ANC posters. I'm like, wow, finally. ANC's delivering services. Like, with the posters, the guys are burning the posters to make themselves warm. I'm like, what? So you're right. It is comedy gold. They're just jokes after jokes after joke after joke after joke. You know what I mean? And then we tell funny stories like EFF is an amazing party because EFF is the only party that's named after its leader's matric results. I'm like, wow.
Okay, that took a while for me.
Don't worry. EFF matric results. I'll watch. You'll get it later.
But Julius has a master's now. Are those jokes still landing with people? Are they still funny?
They do. With ANC, like, I don't trust the current generation of leaders. Like, you know, we are like on the third or the fourth generation of leaders within the ANC. You know, like, I don't know if you know that Mbuso Mandela got arrested for sniffing coke. Mbuso Mandela, Nelson Mandela's grandson, he got arrested for sniffing coke a while back. You know, he was using a 200 rand note to sniff the coke. You know, sniffing coke using 200 rand note. You know, because my thing is that you can do the drugs if you want to, but don't force your grandfather to also sniff the coke. Did you get that one? I can't Mandela Mochelete. Mandela is on the note, so when he sniffs the coke, also Mandela. So it's comedy gold, basically. So we get to write jokes about anybody.
Are there no-go areas with jokes? Like, we're not allowed to joke about Madiba like that. He's our international icon.
No, the joke's about his grandson, Mbuso Mandela. It's just Madiba is an innocent bystander.
He's caught up in the crossfire.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
He's catching strays.
Yeah, you know. So there are no-go areas. Like, you know, it's weird to do jokes about HIV/AIDS. You know, it's weird to do jokes about poverty. You know what I mean? So, but anything goes. Literally anything goes.
We are talking and reflecting on the election trail. I'd love to hear from you. What were some of your highs? What were some of the lows? And now that we have an election outcome, are we having buyer's remorse? Are we having that moment where we're like, we went to the shop and we bought something, but it's maybe not what we thought we wanted. It's maybe not what we had in mind. I'd love to hear from you. 086 000 2032 on the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. It's 11:30. Time for your latest news headlines.
Thank you very much, Cathy, and a very good morning. With the news headlines, Kemudupi Makhalemele. The airports company AXA says 2 suspects have been arrested at Cape Town International Airport. The DA says it'll only agree to be part of the ANC's proposed government of national unity if the MK party, EFF, and the PA are excluded. And workers at Samsung in South Korea are on strike. The action is the first ever at the giant technology company. Details of these and other stories coming up at midday.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We're reflecting on the election campaign 2024. Cathy Mohlahlana is a comedian and is joining us in studio. It's taking a bit of a lighter look at things. So, Cathy, the one thing that we talk about in this country is around the low voter turnout and how very few people turn up for the vote. Now, I want us to play this clip of our former IEC chairperson, Brigalia Bam, and this is what she had to say on the eve of election day and the approach that she was taking towards the election. I'm going to make assumptions and assume that you're going to be voting in the special vote.
I decided, though, in my age, I have all the privileges of a person of my age not to vote at home, but I want to go and be part of the celebration.
Dr. Bam, you're 90 years old this year, hey, Dr. Bam?
No, I'm 91 to be
91. Imagine.
I'm 91 years old, and I feel great. I will be at the station, and I will stand in the line, by the way. Well, not for too long, but I will still stand in the line tomorrow. I have enough energy to be in the line to vote.
She had enough energy, 91. But 10 million of the 27 million registered voters didn't have enough energy.
Yeah, I think people just based on the lack of service delivery, people just gave up. Most people like, nothing's going to happen if I do, you know what I mean? If you look at people that voted for like an organization like Action SA, because Action SA was in the multiple party charter, the MPC with DA, and then, but now it's just withdrawn, you know what I mean? Of which I don't get it. I don't understand why Action SA trusted the DA to stick to their word, you know what I mean? Because now, because Action SA, let me tell you something, DA got votes, they don't need you now. You know what I mean? And then Action is like, oh, we're withdrawing. You're withdrawing because you don't have votes. That's like Kaizer Chiefs saying they're withdrawing from the PSL because they're not part of the top 8. You don't have the votes. You know what I mean? You don't have the votes.
But are all politicians not trustworthy anyway? Do they not all do what they say they're going to do? Is that not the nature of politics?
Yeah, I remember with the ANC before when we were voting, like, yeah, we will never work with the DA. Now they're like, yeah, but DA is all like, you know, we boys, you know what I mean? Because right now, ANC, it's like flirting with everybody. With the DA, with the MK, apparently with the EFF.
Nobody's off the table.
Exactly. You know, I think ANC, I feel like ANC is that lady that's stuck in a club at 2 a.m. without a phone, a car, or money. She's just hoping that a born-again hyena will come through and be good to her. You know, DA's like, yeah, we'll be good for you. We'll be good. EFF is like, yeah, we'll be. And then the DA, it's so weird. The DA is being called a racist party. And then they're like, oh, the only way for us to work with the ANC is to exclude the other black parties and the other colored parties. Like what? Why don't they want to work with the PA, the EFF, and the MK? You know, they exactly my point. Like, you know, you can't trust a political party.
You can't trust politicians. That's just the way it goes. Kaye, you're in Durban. Some of your noteworthy moments from this election?
Yes. Yes, how are you, Cathy and brother Kidibone?
Oh, grand Njam, are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I just wanted to remind you, brother, why do you forget about the load shedding joke as well? I don't know if we are violating any rules about load shedding.
We're not.
It's gone forever, bro.
No, what was fun about load shedding is how the DA had posters saying, stop load shedding. And we're like, what load shedding? Like, what is DA talking about? Which load shedding?
It's like I'm waiting for that assembly in the parliament.
Yes.
Once they are sworn in, or obvious something. I'm not a big analyst, but I predicted myself that from last year in December, I said load shedding will be cut off. Load shedding will be cut off. Now in January, there's still a load shedding. I'm saying, but it can't be. It can't be on the election. And another one, brother, Kidibone, the other one, you are spot on as well for that announcement by President yesterday about the list of the coalition partners.
Yes.
It started nice with EFF.
I know.
Freedom Fighters.
I know.
EFF.
I know.
NFP as well.
Yeah.
And at last, I said, "How? Hey, DA is not in the list." And
surprise.
Thank you, Pa. Thank you.
All right, Kai. Thanks for the call. Matumi, you're in Polokwane. Good morning.
Obvious Matumu ko Polokwane. Matumi can't be in Cape Town. Matum, Orobiang. Matum, obviously, he's in Polokwane. Orobiang Matum.
Don't touch us on our studio. Matumi, I'm speaking on our behalf here.
Matumi, ko Polokwane, of course.
Please.
You are protected, Matumi. You are protected.
There's Matumi Chulan in Gauteng who's not sure whether he's coming back as an emission or something.
Ish, Waban, exactly. But let me
and it might be a tough one, hey, because we've been so focused, Matumi, on the national picture that we haven't even paid attention to the provinces. And in Gauteng, it's a bloodbath. You're right. He might not be coming back.
We don't know whether we'll be panning or not. So
I
must say that Tabenberg, you saw it much earlier that South Africa is alive with possibilities. You know, I like how Kiribon is tuned in, and he killed me with the 200 note, Chairman.
or MEC Matume might just be on the UIF queue there and Kopela Chelete, yeah, UIF, man, Dijo.
And this one of Chile queue, no, getting to know how unemployed people are feeling is no. No, we are laughing because we were a bit stressed, but this show really. I was very stressed, but Kiriboni, thank you very much.
All right, Matumi out in Polokwane. Sienki, you're in Poch. Good morning, Sienki.
Why am I not surprised that Sienki is in Poch? It is in Poch or strong.
Yes, I take away.
I'm good, Sienki. How you doing, man?
I'm good. You know what makes me wonder is Nomvula Mokonyana, who once told those people from Bekestal that ANC doesn't want their stinking votes.
Yes, dirty votes. Keep your dirty votes.
Yes, they keep your dirty votes. But suddenly he's the one who was helping towards this recently.
You can't trust politicians, Sienki. You can't. Today is we don't like your dirty votes. Tomorrow is like, like we will never work with the DA. Today is like, I know, but it is not that bad. We will always be over 50%. But 40% is still a win. Like, yeah. The story changes every day, Sienki.
Yes, but I'm impressed about what transpired lately on the percentages, and I think we should just give it a try for the DA, and mustn't be conclusive before we start it, because of it will not be the first and the last. So there will be another chance, another time after 5 years. But let us just give it a try.
Okay, all right. Senki out in Poch. Letang, you are in Kuruman. Good morning, Letang. Some of your highs, some of your lows from the elections? Hello, Letang.
Hello.
Oh, that connection to you is really bad, Letang.
Kurumang is very far. There are no phones in Kuruman. In Kuruman they still got Ellerins.
It's like what happens in Kuruman.
They still Kuruman. I'm not even surprised that his phone is
Joshua Do.
Kuruman. Like the Vodacom in Kuruman is still blue. I'm like, what? I'm not even lying. Go to Kuruman. Like it's just one street. Like Kuruman guys. I think Kuruman they're still using the old flag,
Letang is about to prove you wrong.
There's no way.
He's back on the line.
Okay,
Letang,
he's gonna break. Okay, go.
Letang.
No, you are right, Cathy, when you say that I'm gonna prove him wrong.
And he did. Letang, why?
I was of the view that I wanted to be a president one day, and I thought that the line of the ANC was too long. Now everything is right now. There was a friend I was like, geez, I'm gonna die without becoming a president. Nowadays I'm seeing a possibility.
Litang, we are alive with possibilities. I mean, even Jesus is back. Ironically, he was brought back by the guy that said he will only be back when ANC loses. Zuma brought back Jesus.
No, but I think he's still camping in Ulundi. Jesus.
Litang Otlaleta, what president of the country? You're gonna wait since you're gonna live up to your name. You're gonna wait.
No. Yeah, but guys, I'm really actually very happy with the outcomes of the elections. I mean, I'm happy. We might think that the EFF has lost, no? But actually they did good, considering that they did 6% in 2014, 10% in 2019, and then 9%. Considering the fact that the MK is there,
yes,
and the EFF has lost, it simply shows that 3% is a new number for the EFF, because we are assuming that all the voters, all the angry people that went to the EFF are now at the MK.
Yeah,
So
you
which
see,
means
Litang, the minute you have to start doing complicated maths, then it means that there's no conversation to be had.
You sounded like Bafana just before when they get knocked out of the World Cup qualifiers. Yeah, if Ghana loses and then Nigeria loses as well, but Mozambique wins, we are in.
The point is, I'm trying to prove that you've got clever people in Burma. That's our container.
All right, Litang. All the best. All the best with your presidential aspirations.
Yes, President Litang.
Let me go to Les Fontaine. Where is Les Fontaine? Marcus, good morning.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Where is Les Fontaine?
Les Fontaine is after Kurumang. Is that the town after Kurumang?
No, Les Fontaine is in Limpopo.
Ebona, Hantu wako hai. Narre Les Fontaine after Kurumang.
In Limpopo, Blueberg Municipality.
Oh, okay.
Oh, in Blueberg Municipality. Okay. Morning, Marcus.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
I want a formula of politics. Does politics have a formula? Because in mathematics, we are having different formulas.
The formula is that if you don't get the majority vote, you have problems.
Or the formula is every time you don't do well, you must just do nothing. I mean, look at our organization ANC. Like, you know, in '94 it was 67%. The next election 60%. The next one 57%. Current one 40%. But we all know probably next one's going to be 23%. I think that's the formula.
Yeah, you know, that formula is not easy. The most difficult formula because that formula is like football. It doesn't have corners. It's just a circle. It's going everywhere. Everywhere you go, you know.
So, do you think there's a formula, Marcus? What would you say the formula for politics is?
Politics doesn't have a formula. They are just like football. You find that you are left with 5 seconds, then the team is scoring with 5 seconds left, then the game is over.
So, Marcus, the question is, do you think the unemployed members of parliament from the ruling party should have a formula to survive unemployment?
You know, you don't know because you don't know the population of people in South Africa. You don't know how many people.
Yeah.
You don't know how many people. You don't have you don't have the exact number of how many people in our country.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Marcus.
You say 100,000. That 100,000 is 100 million. You are not sure.
Yeah, because Claudio Mtsoneng expected 100,000 people to vote for him. Not even one. I don't even think Claudio Mtsoneng's family voted for him.
That party, they call a manifesto. They say we are going to a rally. Then the stadium is full. The stadium is full capacity. But when we are going to voting station, there is no.
It's because South Africans are not loyal. Oh, you guys, you fill up stadiums, you go for free lunch, and then you don't vote for people.
No, even the political parties are not loyal. The voters are not loyal. Everyone is not loyal.
At least, Marcus, at least they have a manifesto. MK didn't have a manifesto. Like if you go to Noord, takes a rank now, yini manifesto, yini lock. Asingacabani manifesto yani mani imali kwenzakalani manifesto yani asithandi yazi sizone kabi thina manifesto asithandi manifesto thina.
You know, they end up sending me a passport to KZN. They say the Republic of KwaZulu-Natal passport. Can I send you that photo on your Facebook?
Well, I don't think it'll come to that, Marcus, although some absolutely wish that it could.
Yes, they sent me a photo of a passport. It's written for the Republic of KwaZulu-Natal.
Who sent it to you?
I don't know. I just see my Facebook. They say
the humor in Les Fontaine is hectic.
All right, Marcus, let's
Thanks,
leave
Marcus.
it Marcus out in Lesfontein. It's in the Bloberg municipality in Limpopo. All right, we've got a minute left before we have to wrap up the show. So, Kidiboni, what are you looking forward to the most right now?
I'm really going to ignore what Marcus said, that they sent him a passport to the Republic of KZN. Is this what happened at Lesfontein?
This is obviously something on WhatsApp. You know how ridiculous things get on social media.
Yeah, I guess. Shout out to Marcus. But Marcus is in a world of his own. Marcus is having a good time. I'm like, oh, what Marcus? Marcus. I love how you just calm about it. I'm like freaking out here. I'm like, what is Marcus
freaking out about a fake passport? Yes! You see, the thing is, you must know the things to entertain. You must know the things to let by.
You have such a hard job. I see you just entertaining. I'm like, oh, what? What's happening in Bloberg?
Hey, watch it. I'm from Bloberg. Please behave yourself. Gidiboni, we're out of time.
Okay, cool.
That's where we're going to have to leave it for today. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for coming through. I'm a comedian. We have a comedy club in Fourways called the Comedy Market. It's in 60 Turako Street in Northcote by Montelavo Hotel. Come through, and then I'm doing my one-man show special based on politics on June 19th at the King's Crawl in Bryanston, and on June 21st at the Comedy Market in Fourways. So come through, check me out on social media. It's Kidiboni Murauzi or Kidiboni SA. I'm funny and I know it.
Wonderful. Let's leave it there for today. We're back with you again next week. What will the possibilities for this country look like? Well, that is a question that time will answer.
Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM.
The book reading. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SAFM presents another episode of The Door, an addict's journey, read by Simpson Kumalo.
Homework needed to be done. Education was encouraged to the extreme and was branded as our key to freedom. I often wondered why they continued to send us to Bantu education schools. I mean, it was intended to keep the black child forever enslaved to the regime. Schools were like military barracks. Some teachers were merciless and seemed to be good extensions of the apartheid machinery. We were almost afraid to go to school, particularly if we hadn't done our homework for one reason or another. They had a knack for punishment, and it was almost like they came from the same planet, different to ours. Punishment was the order of the day, and some teachers were just downright ruthless and cruel towards students. No wonder the children responded with violent confrontation, and the system had to fall. The teachers would punish us for minor errors. They actually made education difficult in an already difficult environment. We had to be at assembly in the morning at a certain time. I never walked so long in my life. If we were half a minute late, it was punishment. We had to sing our lungs out every morning too. And cleaning the school was the responsibility of the students. I hated cleaning toilets, and for the most part, it was almost as if I had the word toilets written on my forehead. Cleaning somebody else's crap was not what I signed up for, but I got the job anyway, and it had to be spick and span. My mother was a domestic worker in Springs. On occasion, she would take me along to a place of employment, and later when I grew older, I would go with her to do some work. For the most part of the day, I would stay outside and she would bring me tea in a tin cup and bread. As long as the owners were still at home, I was not allowed to go into the house. I stayed outside while my mother slaved for them inside. I was flabbergasted and could not understand the rationale of me staying outside. I had to restrain my defiance because there was absolutely nothing I could do about it. I didn't want to get my mother into trouble. It was only after they left the house that my dear mother would allow me inside. The first time I went into the house, I got the shock of my life. I couldn't believe it was possible for people to stay in such opulence. I mean, there were so many rooms, and it looked like they didn't even have kids. Every room was spacious, and the kitchen was something to behold. By the amount of clothes my mother had to wash, you'd think that a community lived in that house. Life was definitely unfair, and we were on the receiving end of the most deplorable part of it. I began to think that if there was a God, then he was unfair and must be white just like them. What was so unique about them? What supremacy was entrenched in the minds of black people? We were nothing and could be nothing. I didn't even believe they went to the bathroom like we did. I was black and I was a curse. End of story. This level of success was not possible for a black child like me. My mother was their maid, and they made sure she understood her position in the food chain. Because of her timidity, I became timid myself, as I didn't want to disappoint her. My mother did everything in that house. She cleaned windows, washed and ironed clothes, cooked, and even did the garden. No wonder she was always tired and seemed irritable at times, and drove my sister so hard with family chores. She hardly spent time with us. And every day she arrived home late, tired, and worn out. We simply didn't understand that narrative and dynamic, and demanded more of her. Her boss, Mr. Jack, was an alcoholic and seemed to be always drunk. He had a young wife, and she was surely frustrated by her husband's continuous binging. But Jack had money, and I'm sure his young wife couldn't wait for Jack to kick the bucket. They both loved my mother, but paid her peanuts and cared less about her family. I guess that was the nature of the beast. When I was little, I didn't notice all that. All that was important was that I was with my mother, and for me, nothing could ever go wrong. At least I could spend some time with her. But I hated doing that garden. I didn't even do it at home. That was my brother's responsibility, and yet I was doing gardening in the heat of the day for people I really didn't care about. And to top it all, they had a dog I had to feed. I hated dogs, and this one was treated better than me too. My mother was a magic woman. She could do so many things at once. She grew up on a farm and worked all day. So she practically worked her entire life. As I began to realize what her life had been like and still was, I vowed to make my own money and free her from slavery. The first job I got when I was overseas, I sent her money. I told her that if she quit working for those white people, I would double her salary. And that is exactly what I did. I didn't earn a lot, but I made sure my mother quit that job and went home to do whatever she pleased with her life, even if it was just sleeping the whole day. She deserved it. She'd cared for 7 children and juggled so many things at once. To me, she was everything, and I even considered her to be a genius capable of solving all my issues. She helped me with my homework, and I trusted only her judgments on my maths and physics. I was a mommy and daddy's boy. I felt so loved by my parents, and I never wanted to disappoint them. He was never violent towards my mother. In fact, quite the contrary. He was very respectful. He was an honorable man. He got paid every Friday, and I would watch him give my mom his pay slip and whatever was in it. Not a cent missing. Without fail, every Friday he would bring a few packages of chips for his children. Friday was a happy day for me and my siblings because we knew that we would feast on the chips and Vienna sausages that he would buy on his way from work. My mother handled the home finances of the house. With their combined income, my mother was discharged with the duties of making sure that there was food for all of us for the whole week. Sometimes we would gather scraps from my mother's workplace. The relationship between my brothers and I was always cordial. I looked up to them. They were my mentors. My father was very strict with them and didn't take nonsense from anybody. I felt safe and confident when I was with them. They were wise and street smart and knew their way around the township. They had lots of friends. My brothers were not immune to the happenings of township life, and some of their friends were dodgy. I guess all of us need to find our identity away from the nest of our parents, and my brothers were no different. I was just a follower, I was a little bit afraid of my older brother Soli, who was a troublemaker and actually very defiant. He was always in trouble. I recall police barging into our home at an ungodly hour looking for him. They ransacked our home and there was nothing my dad could do. Soli was accused of peddling dagga, so my parents shipped him off to Venda where he spent a few years away from us. My parents at the time were traditionalists and believed perhaps there was something wrong with him. They even took him to a sangoma and he stayed there for a considerable amount of time. The idea of my elder brother being away did not sit well with me. The streets were merciless. If you were a sissy, you wouldn't survive. The gangs owned the streets. Pickpocketing and petty crime were rife, and you could be robbed of your hard-earned wages if you were not careful. Since everybody was working as a laborer, they received weekly wages in cash, and the taxi ranks and stations were filled with pickpockets. Many people fell victim and lost their hard-earned weekly wages. A lot of people drank alcohol, and it seems like it was the only pastime apartheid provided for our people. Watema had an alcohol problem, and perhaps many people were in denial. The township was known for its shebeens. I saw many men congregating in shebeens. I guess this was the place where they could drown their sorrows. The heavy load of apartheid was too much to bear and many needed to de-stress. I went with my dad sometimes and I would watch him drink with his friends. It made me happy to see him relax in that environment, and I was exposed to another side of life. So many men in this one place doing nothing but drinking copious amounts of alcohol, perhaps to drown out their sorrows. I mean, who wouldn't, living under those conditions? I was glad he took me along because I felt that I could protect him as we walked home while he was under the influence. From time to time, my father managed to secure temporary employment for me during school breaks, and I witnessed firsthand the sheer dehumanization and exploitation of black labor. Indeed, we were hewers of wood and drawers of water. Quite a few other kids also worked there during the school holidays, cleaning the factory. I watched as my father trained and developed young white employees and how these young whites, because of the color of their skin, were promoted ahead of the black employees and even got paid better salaries. Black employees like my father gained lots of experience for years, but were passed over because of the color of their skin. It was a curse to be black in South Africa, and there was no way out. You were relegated to menial jobs, and the prospect of upward mobility was distant, if not impossible. I made friends with a few of the other school kids who were working part-time like me. There were also a few young white students who came to do the same work. They were all spoiled and could hardly do any work. I remember one day we were working to blow the roof clean, and one or two of them decided to come around to where we were working. We decided to beat them up, not heavily. They cried like babies, but we drowned out their cries with singing. After the ordeal, they ran to their daddies, and we all got fired. We watched in disdain as our fathers begged the boss for pardon. Needless to say, my dad was very silent on our way home, but when we got there, I got the hiding of my life. It was painful, but I was satisfied that I got to lay a hand on one of those spoiled brats. From then on, we weren't treated too well at work. We received the worst jobs while our white counterparts had it easy. It was the beginning of the motivation to do better than our fathers. The experience opened our eyes. If anything, I would also like to sit in a cozy office where the only blacks you saw were maids who were cleaning and making tea for the white bosses. I often wondered how wonderful and satisfying it would be to have white people serving me and working for me. I knew I had to hang on to the Bantu education to change my life and that of my family. I dreamed about owning my own company one day.
That was another episode of The Door, an addict's journey written by Abner Mariri. The book is available on www.abner.africa. It is broadcast on SAFM at 11:45 Monday to Thursday on The Talking Point. It is produced for the station by Vovi Patala, read by Samson Kumalo, technical production by Nanda Koza.
Just after 12 o'clock on Friday, the 7th of June 2024. A very warm welcome to Updated Noon here on SAFM. Leading the conversation, I'm Sakina Kamwendo. Coming up in the next hour,
we also hope to get more details from the ANC on the final details of what the Government of National Unity proposal entails, which will then be deliberated by our Federal Executive and subsequently our Federal Council, which is due to meet on Monday.
Well, the Democratic Alliance has welcomed the ANC's proposal of a government of national unity.
Can you please assist with some food supplies? Because they're running out, they're almost out of food, and they're going to be trapped with the water levels at least for another 3 days.
And the South African National Defence Force, the South African Police Service and the Air Mercy Services helicopter have all assisted Gift of the Givers to distribute necessary necessities to families. Coming up in sport.
Busy weekend of sport. Bafana Nigeria have travel issues. Also the Proteas and the Bulls in action this weekend.
Waiting to hear more about what's to come, and that of course with John Chirica in the second half of the show. Please share your views with us. You can write to us on 41391, that's the SMS line number, charged at R1.50 per SMS. You can also write to us via X or Facebook at SABC News _radio or using the hashtag Updated Noon. Alternatively, send us a WhatsApp voice note. 0826923909 is the number to dial. Well, these and more stories coming up on this Friday edition of Updated Noon. First though, let's bring you up to speed with the latest news with Mudupi Makhalimele.
Thank you very much, SK. The top stories this hour: 2 people arrested at Cape Town International Airport and a first ever strike at the tech giant Samsung. A very good afternoon. 2 people have been arrested for causing a disruption at Cape Town International Airport. They allegedly made comments which were interpreted to mean a security threat on a Fly SA Fair flight yesterday. Airports company AXA says operations are now back to normal. Ditebohon Damani has more.
The South African Police Service bomb squad was deployed to Cape Town International Airport shortly after the crew of Flight FA102 received a warning of a possible security threat aboard the aircraft. Law enforcement agencies, including police, later successfully managed the situation. Passengers were rebooked onto a different flight and are said to have arrived at their destination safely. Ditebohon Damani, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The DA says it'll only agree to be part of the ANC's proposed Government of National Unity if the MK Party, EFF, and the PA are excluded. Yesterday, ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa announced that the party was seeking to form a Government of National Unity with a broad group of opposition parties. It has laid down stringent conditions under which the parties would be included in the pact. The DA says it hopes that it'll get the details of how the Government of National Unity will work in its next meeting with the ANC. DA spokesperson Werner Horn.
The President was not very specific in terms of the characteristics of such a Government of National Unity. We will hopefully get some more detail from them, and then the duty of that negotiating team will be to bring the specifics back to the Federal Executive, and on Monday the Federal Council will have to decide. But even the smallest way of including those 3 parties will, in terms of the current resolution of the Federal Executive, make it very difficult, if not impossible, for us to be included.
Former Deputy President Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka has called on all South African men to take a stand against gender-based violence. She was speaking at the funeral of celebrity chef Thembekile Letlape in Bryanston, Joburg. Letlape, who was commonly known as the Pastry Princess, died last week. Her body was found on Thursday at her partner's house. Her boyfriend, Sbusiso Zita, has since appeared in court in connection with her murder. Mlambo-Ngcuka says South Africa cannot continue with this level of violence against women.
I ask that the men in South Africa take this and be in front, because this is their problem. Violence of men against women is a male issue. If men were to decide that andizobetha umuntu, end of story. So we urge everybody to do what they can. It is not enough to be a good man and not be a perpetrator.
A 22-year-old man will appear in the Welkom Magistrates Court in the Free State for allegedly killing his girlfriend. He's facing charges of murder, defeating the ends of justice, and violating a corpse. Nontsokolo Stemere reports.
Cleo Siape is applying for bail in the Welkom Magistrate Court today, after he reportedly led the police to a closed disused mineshaft where the charred remainings of Tato Tumaholo were found. 19-year-old Tumaholo was reported missing on May the 10th by her mother, and the police investigations led to the boyfriend who confessed. Nanzokolo Stemmer, SABC News, Welkom.
And workers at Samsung in South Korea are on strike. The action is the first ever at the giant technology company. Those who are participating in the strike are mostly office staff at Samsung's headquarters. More from the BBC's Nick Marsh.
The main union wants bigger pay rises, it wants bonuses to be paid, it wants an extra day of annual leave. They haven't been able to come to an agreement with the bosses at Samsung Electronics, so they have told their members, 28,000 of them, to not quite go on strike, but actually to take a day of paid leave. Today is a Friday after a national holiday, so it's a day when a lot of people would take leave anyway, but the idea is disrupt operations as much as they can while not fully going on strike.
Recapping the top story, 2 people have been arrested for causing a disruption at Cape Town International Airport. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemele.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m. Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo.
Thanks, Madubi. Good afternoon, everybody. It's 8 minutes after 12, rather. And of course, coming up on Update at Noon, we'll just try and keep our eyes and ears on the ground to find out if there are any further developments after the ANC's President Cyril Ramaphosa made the announcement last night that they will look to form a government of national unity. So there's been quite a bit said and quite a bit of reaction, especially from the general public as well, regarding this idea. But of course, it remains to be seen whether the ANC will ultimately end up constituting a government of national unity, or will they end up with perhaps a grand coalition? What is it going to be? Because, as I say, we're trying to keep our eyes and ears peeled because as it stands right now, Julius Malema of the EFF had already tweeted overnight that, and I actually want to quote him in terms of what he had to say after the ANC's announcement. And this was a tweet or an X put out by Julius Malema last night at 19 minutes before midnight. This was after the ANC's announcement. And he says the arrogance continues even after the South African voters issued warning signs. You can't dictate the way forward as if you've won elections. We are not desperate for anything, and ours is a generational mission. Unquote. So that was what Julius Malema put out. So at this point, I'm not sure, but, I'm hearing a few rumblings about possible rejections of the government of national unity. But of course, we will wait to confirm. We'll await confirmation because the EFF is set to hold a briefing, a meeting. But before that, there will be a photo opportunity. And it will be interesting to see if anyone puts that question to them as to whether they will form part of or whether they are likely to reject the government of national unity idea. Also, the Umkhonto weSizwe Party, so they made it known last night that they haven't received any formal invitation from the African National Congress. There have been some overtures, as they put it, but nothing formal. So what is going on there? And this, of course, raises once more the question of the various scenarios that could play out. Let's say there were to be the scenario of a grand coalition. Who do you think will constitute that coalition, and what would be the implications of that for the various parties that may be involved? So all of this, of course, is what South Africans are talking about, what's top of mind at the moment, and we are just trying to make sure that we keep our eyes and ears open to hear what's going on around us. President Cyril Ramaphosa, incidentally, is in the Eastern Cape today visiting the flood-affected areas in that particular province. We also keeping an eye on the post office, where we understand workers will be protesting outside the headquarters in Pretoria. The removal of cash in retail stores and other businesses could be affected as workers at G4S Cash Solutions embark on a nationwide strike as well. Striking workers are demanding the reinstatement of some of their retrenched colleagues. And the 2024 Child Protection Week marked another round of terror against children, which we have spoken about on the show. 2 young girls in Soshanguve, the 2 sisters, 4 and 7 years old, who were shot and burnt on Sunday night. They are also being laid to rest today. And this, of course, comes just 3 weeks after 5-year-old Ditebogo Junior Palane was also gunned down in the same township. So those are some of the stories that we're keeping an eye on.
Sakina Kamwendo on SAFM.
Well, President Cyril Ramaphosa says that the ANC is seeking a government of national unity which would reflect the will of the people and help move the country forward. Now, he was speaking at the end of the governing party's special NEC meeting in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg, last night. The meeting was called to discuss the model of a government that the ANC would prefer after failing to secure the required majority of votes to constitute government alone. This report by Debo Mokobo.
It's a song about the ANC's longest-serving president, Oliver Reginald Tambo. It simply says, "Oliver Tambo, hold my hand in difficult times." And this as things are indeed difficult for the organization he loves so much. For the first time in 30 years, it has dipped below 50% and is now forced to beg small parties to help it govern. Party President Cyril Ramaphosa says only the unity of purpose will help the country move forward.
The NEC has agreed that this moment calls for the broadest unity of the people of South Africa. This moment also calls for multi-party cooperation and multi-stakeholder collaboration if we are to overcome the severe challenges that confront our country.
And he mapped out his party's strategy for coalition talks, saying it has opted for a government of national unity.
The NEC meeting has provided clear direction on the work that we must do over the next few days, as well as the next few weeks, to establish national and provincial governments that are stable, effective, and advance the interests of the people of South Africa as a whole. We have therefore agreed that we will invite political parties to form a government of national unity as the best option to move our country forward.
The ANC president also insists on some of the requirements that parties need to adhere to be part of the unity government.
All parties must commit to shared values, nation building and social cohesion. These values include respect for the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa and the rule of law, social justice and equity, human dignity, non-racialism and non-sexism. These values also include stability, accountability, transparency, integrity, community participation and good governance. Agreements between parties who will be involved in this whole process should be in writing. They should be public and include measures for holding all participants accountable.
President Ramaphosa said they've already held constructive talks with parties like the EFF, the DA, the IFP, the National Freedom Party and the Patriotic Alliance, with a meeting of the MK party still on the cards. He also called for a national dialogue to unite the nation around common goals. I am Debo Mokobo Boksburg in Ekurhuleni.
Meanwhile, the Democratic Alliance says that its negotiating team is further consulting with other parties at this stage before giving an in-depth response and reaction. Here's the party's second Deputy Federal Chairperson, Solly Malatsi.
The DA welcomes the fact that negotiations are now moving into a substantive negotiation phase. Our negotiation team will, based on the announcement that was made last night by the President, have further meetings with other parties to listen to their views and reactions. We also hope to get more details from the ANC on the final details of what the Government of National Unity proposal entails, which will then be deliberated by our Federal Executive and subsequently our Federal Council, which is due to meet on Monday. We remain committed to the process of negotiation and helping find a solution to the situation that our country finds ourselves in.
That was the DA's second Deputy Federal Chairperson, Solly Malatsi. The Umkhonto weSizwe Party has called for a detailed explanation of what a government of national unity is in current times. Here's the MK spokesperson, Nhlamulo Ndlela, speaking to our colleague Stephen Grootes earlier.
We should not use words loosely. This so-called framework of government of national unity, we need to take into consideration what does that mean? Remember, government of national unity was formed in 1994 at the time when there were riots, there was civil war within South Africa, and there's fighting. And the aim thereof was to say, let's form a government that will unify us and end the issue of fighting and war and killings that were happening at the time. And remember, Umkhonto weSizwe was part of that as a military wing at the time that in 1961 when they were formed. So it was to say, let's end the war, let's end the fighting. That was the aim of the government of national unity. But let's be honest, Stephen, since then to now, that position that was taken, quite honestly, has been a perpetuation of poverty in our country. So we can't just be talking about a government of national unity, and take those and loosely use those words. We need to be careful here. Okay. We're willing to engage in discussions, absolutely. Get a sense of what any other political party that's engaging us, what their position is from a policy perspective, from a governance perspective. Of course, we're willing to listen. But let's not use words loosely. What does a government of national unity mean? Because those words were used then, and those same words which led to a government which, quite honestly, still continues today to protect a few and perpetuate poverty.
Okay, let me come at this from another way. Would you be, as Umkhonto weSizwe, are you prepared to work with the ANC, with Cyril Ramaphosa as its leader, and with Cyril Ramaphosa as president, or is your condition still that he can't be president?
I think we need to take into consideration what is a condition and what is not. We've said that, yes, we will not engage with the ANC of Cyril Ramaphosa. We'll engage with the ANC. And what we're saying, effectively, is that they themselves have got policies that under his leadership, they've not implemented to liberate our people. Have they? Stephen? No. So how can we engage with individuals whereby we still have to be negotiating policy and whether which policy must be implemented when in actual fact their own policy position says that they ought to be implementing those policies? Has he implemented any of them? No. So we've got our policies. They've got their own policies. Some of them, like I mentioned, when we engage in any coalition or any discussion, we look at policy alignment. And where policies align, which we know some of their policies align with ours, have not been implemented under his leadership. So when you say we're not engaging with the policy, with the ANC of Ramaphosa, we mean the ANC that is incompetent. We cannot engage whereby for the next 5 years we're going to be discussing whether we must implement a policy or not. Our South Africans are tired of politicking. People want to see change.
And that was the Umkhonto weSizwe national spokesperson, Nhlamulo Ndlela. Let us know your thoughts on all of these developments. Your thoughts on a government of national unity. Do you think it's a feasible idea? Do you think that perhaps there may be other scenarios that would be better suited to the current situation that we find ourselves in? And also sketch a few for us, if you will, and let us know why you think yours might perhaps be a better idea idea. Open to hearing all of that. You can either write to us or you can send us a WhatsApp voice note.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m.
It's 21 minutes after 12. Now, the South African National Defence Force, the South African Police Services and the Air Mercy Services helicopter have all assisted a gift of the givers to distribute necessities to families in the Little Karoo who've been cut off due to flooding. Heavy rains over the past few days have resulted in various road closures due to floods and rockfalls. The rain has, however, also been welcomed by the farmers in the area following a 7-year drought. This report by Sagri Chetty.
Air Mercy Services made multiple trips to the other side of the Olifants River near Calitzdorp, just outside of Oudtshoorn, where around 90 families were cut off by the flooded river. With some parts of the bridge underwater and damaged by the flood, these families were unable to cross and access roads to buy necessities. Gift of the Givers and other role players sprung into action, taking food and other essential items which were transported via helicopter. Here's Gift of the Givers Garden Route representative Mario Ferreira.
This specific area where we are now, there is 90 families that's trapped that has sent a request out. Can you please assist with some food supplies? Because they're running out, they're almost out of food, and they're going to be trapped with the water levels at least for another 3 days. So they've got per family at least provisions for 3 days now.
Repair work is still being done on the N12 between Oudtshoorn and De Rust, where the Nels River flooded its banks and washed away part of the road. Although the heavy rain has caused infrastructure damage, there's also a sense of relief that a 7-year drought has at last been broken. Lopsha Kutsia from Agri Western Cape says farmers in the region have not reported any losses of animals or crops so far.
You know, we came through a 7-year drought period, and as I've said last year, it's not one good year that cancelled 7 dry years, and we're so gladful and grateful for the fact that we're in for a second good year. But besides that, we know that all the dams are full, and the river's running that strong means that we're going to have another 3 years of good expectations for good years in this area.
Some flooded roads are still inaccessible, but authorities say the water is starting to subside. The Maringspoort Pass remains closed until further notice, while the Swartberg Pass has been reopened. I'm Segri Chetty in Oudtshoorn in the Western Cape.
And following up on that as well, just to keep an eye on those developments. 23 minutes after 12.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 107.1 FM in Sea Point. Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m.
A group of former employees of the South African Post Office are staging a picket outside the entity's headquarters in Pretoria. Now, it's been reported that the Post Office has been deducting pension fund contributions from workers' salaries, but failed to pay it into the employees' retirement fund for 3 years. So for more on this development, we join on the line by our reporter Nothando Makutulela. Nothando, good afternoon. So firstly, please tell us how many employees more or less have turned out for this picket?
Hi, Sakina. I see there's not more than 20 employees that have turned out for the sit-in outside of the South African Post Office head offices in Pretoria.
Nothando, what exactly are they aggrieved about? And also, have any officials met with them to address their concerns?
Currently, they are in a meeting with representatives of the retrenched workers. Well, as I was talking to the workers earlier, they were telling me that they are frustrated because they haven't gotten one pay since they were retrenched end of April, which was a day after Good Friday. They haven't seen a single pay from Post Office, and they say they have needs that they need to, they have people to support, they have families to support, and yet they're not getting anything from the post office. They were called back for about a week after they were retrenched, and then they were sent back again. So they have so many issues that they're saying when they go and look for their pension funds at their respective pension fund holders, and they see that they've worked for over 10 years, and yet they are leaving post office with a mere 70,000 rand. And they feel that it can't be that they worked for so many years and get such less than 100,000 rand as a pension fund payout. So they want those issues to be addressed. The medical aid issue, that they're still deducted from their pays. They're still getting pay slips, but they are retrenched. And they just want answers as to where do they stand with the post office? When are they going to get their monies? And are these things being resolved as to how are they going to fix their pension funds, their medical aids, and all their other benefits?
We know that the South African post office has been hemorrhaging financially for a while now. Have they said anything about the demands that are made by the workers, Nothando?
They haven't said anything to the workers. They're still in a meeting with them, with the representatives. They haven't sent out a statement or anything. We do know that they have approached Treasury for some funding so that they will be able to make payouts to these workers.
So the meeting that is obviously underway will, I would imagine, provide some answers, but have the workers who are staging the picket, have they, in speaking to them, given you any indication of what the way forward may be if their demands are not met, Nothando?
Well, they do say that they will keep on coming to the head offices should they not get the response that they are looking for, which is getting their monies paid into their accounts before the end of this month.
Nothando Makudulela, thank you so much watching that story for us unfolding at the headquarters of the South African Post Office in Pretoria. Workers were retrenched. They are picketing, saying that they've made contributions, or those have been deducted whilst they were in the employ of the South African Post Office, but feel that they have not gotten what they had actually contributed towards over the years. So we'll let you know once they come out, or just stay tuned to SABC News as we update that story.
Update at noon, midday to 1 p.m.
Right, just about a minute before we go to headline news. Phumzile, take my hand and walk with me. I tell you, Phumzile, that is exactly what's happening at the moment, because it's interesting what all of the parties are actually dealing with right now. But as I said, I'm so curious to hear your thoughts on this moment that we find ourselves at as a country. All right, believe we have a caller who's just squeezed in there. Nhlanhla Buthelezi, I believe it is. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Sakin. How are you?
I'm well, and you?
I'm fine. Good. To the listeners. Yeah.
What's in your mind, Nhlanhla?
In my mind is that for the voted the NK party to pay. The matter is in.
No. And Nhlanhla, that line is really not good. I'll tell you what, we're about to go to headline news. We'll try and take you at that point where we listen to the voice notes because I'm curious to hear what you have to say. But unfortunately, the signal not playing along. So we'll take your number, we'll call you back and hear what you have to say. And of course, everybody else as well, let us know what your thoughts are. Send us a WhatsApp voice note or write to us via X or Facebook and tell us what you would like to see happen at this very, very important moment for us as a country. It's 12:30. Let's bring up to speed with the latest news headlines with Mudupi Makhalimele.
Thank you very much, SK, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines this hour, the DA says it'll hold discussions with other opposition parties in a bid to constructively engage on the ANC's proposal to form a government of national unity. 2 people have been arrested for causing a disruption at Cape Town International Airport, and the Gift of the Givers teams are responding to various calls for humanitarian assistance from informal settlements across the Western Cape. Details of these and other stories coming up 1 o'clock.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
And it's a Friday. Victor Mapunga joins us. Victor's investment strategist at Old Mutual Wealth. What a week we've had on the political front, and curious to know what's happening with the markets, because a lot has been said about the impact on the markets and how that may also help in determining the direction that we move in. But of course, I see we're struggling with Victor as well. I'm not sure what's happening with the signal at the moment. Just struggling to connect with various people that we're trying to get hold of. So we'll try, and whilst we wait for Victor, let's take John. John's here. So let's do sport in the meantime, and we'll come back to Victor if we have to.
SAFM Sport with John Gericka.
You see how that light went on by itself?
I did. It's a spook. It's a spooky spot. Now that no, but what? How does that work?
How does that work?
You switched the light off and the screen went off. We've worked out what Sia did to the computers. Sia's good. How do you? I'm not even going to question.
Okay. Yeah.
I was going to tell you about the markets. They're either up or down, but they can be up and down sometimes.
That's so profound.
You see, I know all about finance. I know about football. Nigeria take on South Africa today. World Cup qualifier kicks off at 9 o'clock South African time. Let's hear from Bafana coach first, Hugo Bruce.
I think that we are ready for this game, surely, otherwise we shouldn't be here. Secondly, we all know that Nigeria is a very good team. We played against them in AFCON, but as I remember, I think that result could be the opposite from what it was. We could have been in the final, so that means that both teams are maybe even good. I know also that the pressure is a little bit on Nigeria, because they have to win the game. When you play qualifiers for World Cup of AFCON, you can't lose points at home, so the pressure is a little bit on them. At the other side, we believe in it and we have confidence. We played a very good game in March against Algeria, so that means that we can go on the level we had in AFCON. So we believe that we can make a good result tomorrow.
Well, there he was, standing behind a bench, no advertising at all behind him. Well, anyway, Nigeria also have been struggling with travel issues due to that big strike in the country. Striker Kelechi Iheanacho hopes that all the players will make it to the team before kickoff.
We've got almost everybody today, and we did a big session, so which is very, very important. And hopefully everyone will be around tomorrow, so for us to get the full length of pitch and training that we need. So, but overall, we've been really working really hard on training since few days now. So I think the coaches are doing a really great job. So we are really fit and ready to roll.
We'll also say South Africa's group, Zimbabwe take on Lesotho at 3 o'clock. Both sides looking for their first wins. Yesterday, Benin beat Rwanda for them to all be level on 4 points each from 3 games. Elsewhere, Kenya against Burundi, Mozambique take on Somalia, Eswatini go to Angola, Madagascar against the Comores, and Uganda against Botswana from 6. Then at 9 o'clock, Ivory Coast against Gabon, Morocco hosts Zambia. Friendlies in Europe ahead of Euro 24. England take on Iceland, the mighty Iceland. Germany host Greece, and Scotland take on Finland. Cricket today. You see, yesterday, the USA winning, against Pakistan, small nation. America, the headline is America's waking up to cricket. It's like, do the Americans even know?
Wow.
NBA finals were on last night. Do you think Americans know that there was a cricket game?
No.
Canada against Ireland today at 4:30. Tomorrow morning, 1:30. Afghanistan against New Zealand, and Bangladesh against Sri Lanka. Probably the big game at 2:30. Meanwhile, South Africa take on the Netherlands tomorrow afternoon in New York. Been some issues with the drop-in pitch at the ground, but Proteas batsman Heinrich Klaassen hopes the ICC will correct matters ahead of the game.
Yeah, the wicket that we saw over the last couple of games leveled the playing field quite big, but hopefully we're going to play on a new wicket that's been back-to-back wickets on the same one that we played on. And I know there's 3 or 4 strips. So the other strip was all right that India and Sri Lanka played on. I think the score was 170 or 180. So that's a decent score in America. So hopefully we'll get some form of a better wicket. We don't mind it that the bowlers have something in for them. I think it just needs to be a fair contest.
So I must tell you, that story what you told us the other day, like I was sufficiently interested to go read it. Yeah, the drop-in pitch. Yeah. So as you had explained, 6 of the trays which transported the soil for the 10 Tahoma grass surfaces came from Australia.
That's right. It was
the
Green Melbourne.
$32 million. And then it was shipped from Australia to Florida, where the pitches were then cultivated.
Right.
And then they moved them again. And then you wonder why this pitch is not playing so well. So now the ICC is promising to remedy the New York pitch problems ahead of the India-Pakistan match, because this is going to be a travesty if that pitch doesn't hold up. And the Aussie curator, I'm reading different headlines now, is working hard to improve the New York pitch. It's madness.
All right, we got more chats later on. Wait now. Rugby quarterfinals today. Munster take on Ospreys in the first game. That kicks off at 25-9. Tomorrow, the Bulls host Benetton in Pretoria. The Bulls will make do without Marco van Staden and Keenan Moody, though. They're both out injured. So Jake White feels the lessons that they've learnt over the last couple of years, where they've come just this close, will all come together tomorrow.
People talk about we got a home semi, but that means we've still got to win the quarterfinal. So that's little steps. We got to the final the first year, we lost. Second year, we caught the Stormers again, that were the champions in the quarterfinals. We lost. Maybe this is an example of all the lessons we learned in the 2 years. We get a home quarter, which is what happened in year 1. We could probably get a home semi if we win the game, which is we haven't had. So already there's a massive difference to where we are as a group. And all the coaches want, and all the people involved in the team want, is we give ourselves a really good chance to win this competition.
Also, Leinster against Ulster at 6 o'clock. Glasgow Warriors take on the Stormers at 25-9. Super Rugby result today. Also quarterfinals. The Chiefs thumped the Reds 43 points to 21. Formula One's in Canada this weekend. Qualifying's at 10 o'clock tomorrow evening. Races at 8 o'clock on Sunday. We're going to skip over Charles Leclerc because I want to talk about tennis quickly. Carlos Alcaraz takes on Yannick Sinner today in the men's semis. Casper Ruud against Alexander Zverev. If you were watching yesterday, Coco Gauff had a bad call against her, and she's what 20 years old is Coco Gauff, 20 years old, right? So she has a bad call, and she went to the back of the court and she cried, like that frustrated, angry, sad cry that you get sometime. And I was thinking, like, at the time, what it must be like for a 20-year-old to have the stadium and the world watching it. I mean, millions of people would have been watching the women's semi-finals yesterday. She goes, she has a cry, and then to continue. Okay, it's a job. We all want to have a cry sometimes doing our job, and we have to do it. But we just do it with our colleagues, 5-6 people around us. Millions of people were watching yesterday, and at 20 years old, and we talk about Alcaraz Sinner today. He's 21, plays 22. The old guys, Ruud against Zverev, 25, plays 27. We forget, I forget as a sports guy, just how young modern sports people are. Iga Swiatek just turned 23.
Yeah.
That's my son's age. And you think, like, the pressure that their brains aren't fully developed yet. And yet here they are putting on a show for us. And we, let's feel bad for them sometimes.
You're absolutely right. It's tough, though. It's a tough one because, you go back and you look at, for example, when Boris Becker won Wimbledon as a qualifier, he was 17 years old. And what happens the following year? The pressure, because now you've already won this Grand Slam at the ripe old age of 17, Yeah. And you look at someone like, what was her name? Jennifer Capriati. Jennifer Capriati never even got to reach her full potential because there was just so much going on. And she was already touted as this golden girl.
Look, I know they've done junior tennis and all those kind of things, but it's
a different stage.
Yeah, junior tennis isn't even on TV. Here they are on TV.
Different.
To have a meltdown like that where you're so frustrated, think about it. You've had it at work. And now the world's eyes are upon you and you've got to go and perform at your best again. Some are hard.
No, I totally agree, but it also raises, the spectre and of what the support teams need to do, because don't forget, these kids travel around with massive entourages, with teams. They've got dietitians, they've got a psychologist, they've got everything around them. And at the time when Naomi Osaka was going through her ordeal, for me, I already raised the question there about what are they doing in order to better prepare these athletes.
All right. Lungile says we've got to go. So I'm out. I'm doing Comrades on Sunday.
Yeah. Let me leave you with this.
Okay.
You're
going to get into trouble.
The cricket thing.
Yes.
$30 million New York Stadium with turf shipped from Australia opens for business. Men's T20 World Cup. The pitches that were shipped from Australia, and they were bragging about how wonderful this is going to be. And you look at 5 days later, and it's all just gone south.
A mate of mine says, I mustn't let you off about the small teams. You were brutal about the first stages.
Yeah.
See, small teams can still win. They beat Pakistan yesterday.
They're not going to win the World Cup. I'm still not going to watch them. I'm still not going to watch them. Bye.
Progress. It's the essence of Audi. Always pushing boundaries, exceeding expectations. Imagine extending the same progress to your Audi ownership. Now, extend your cover up to 15 years or 300,000 kilometers with the Audi Freeway Plan Extension. Keep moving forward with peace of mind and enjoy your Audi for longer. Experience value beyond tomorrow with an Audi Freeway Plan Extension. Visit audi.co.za or your nearest dealer for more information.
So, a lady from Air Officini just turned 55, and although I'm still a spring chicken, there's a part of me that envies her, especially since she now qualifies for a Nedbank Electronic Optimum Plus account with capital guaranteed. Talk about foamy, huh, voice man?
If you mean FOMO, then definitely boss man. And she can earn up to 12.65% interest. Anyone over 55 can open theirs via the Nedbank Money app. Visit our website for more information. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Are you ready to empower yourself with an accredited tertiary qualification? Stadio Higher Education's distance learning programs will set you up for success. Whether you're balancing work and family, or you're a school leaver who must work to support yourself and your studies, Stadio offers access to high-quality, affordable qualifications in law, teacher education, commerce, admin and management, policing, and more. Mid-year applications are now open. Visit stadio.ac.za and register today. Stadio, a new vision in higher education.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Well, we managed to track him down. Victor Mapunga, investment strategist at Old Mutual Wealth. Good afternoon, Victor.
Good afternoon, Sakina. Yeah, in terms of this week, markets and economy, it's been obviously a very busy week. The rand at the moment is trading at 18.90 to the dollar. It started the week around about 18.50, so it's weakened a little bit over the course of the week. Our all-share index is around about 77,000. It's moved sideways for most of the week, after the initial sell-off late last week on the back of the surprise election results. In terms of the local markets, understandably, the market has been very much focused on the election and the discussions that are going on as far as coalitions are concerned. And I think it's fair to say that this week, the market has really taken a wait-and-see approach. We see that in our bonds, the financials that are listed on our market, industrials, basically all the businesses that can be considered as SA exposed to the South African economy. They've really sort of been going sideways this week. And that focus, on elections has been so singular that some other sort of important data points have largely been ignored by the markets. We had our first quarter GDP numbers a couple of days ago, and they came in weaker than expected. The economy contracted by 0.1% in the first quarter. That was below expectations, but the market really shrugged that off. We also had the Reserve Bank announcing the latest monetary policy decision. They kept rates unchanged. As expected, they continued sort of their hawkish tone, sort of suggesting that if we are going to have a rate cut, it's probably just one cut later this year. And again, the market sort of ignored that, and that's all that focus around the elections. But we're not alone. If we think globally over the last week, or if we look globally over the last week, India and Mexico, other emerging markets, they also had election outcomes, and the market sold off on the back of the results there, because they also came in as a surprise. Given what was expected, sort of leading to those election results. I think the important one to watch there is India, because they've seen very strong markets over the last couple of years on the back of reforms that have been going on, strong economy in India there, and their market is up almost 25% over the last year, and so valuation is starting to look a little bit stretched there. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out, sort of looking forward, given their recent elections there. And then just from a central bank perspective globally, in the last week, we had both the ECB and Canada cutting rates. That follows on from the Swiss National Bank. They cut their interest rates a few weeks ago, and a few months ago, the concern was that we were unlikely to see any major central banks cutting rates before the US Fed. Because of the concerns around what the impact would be on their currencies, given the likely impact on the dollar, if they cut ahead of, or rather if the Fed delays its cutting and other developed market central banks cut sooner. But we're starting to see, developed market central banks cutting rates, which I guess is a good indication, sort of speaking to us seeing the end of that high inflation that we've seen over the last couple of years. We haven't seen any emerging market central banks sort of going ahead of the Fed, and I guess that will be something to watch in the second half of the year. In terms of looking ahead, we have the all-important non-farm payrolls, the unemployment numbers in the US coming out shortly this afternoon. Those will be closely watched to give us a sense of how the US economy is looking. And then locally, I think the focus will continue to be on those coalition GNU talks, and that will probably move markets. So a lot to look forward to next week, Sakina, in terms of the markets.
Victor Mapunga, thanks so much for that roundup. Victor's investment strategist at Old Mutual Wealth.
Channel your inner adventurer on Top Travel this Saturday night at 8:30 on S3 as we're bathing in mud on an Eastern Cape safari. Blackwater tubing Storms River, free-falling over Plet having the time of our lives, cooking with South Africa's trailblazing salt chefs, and searching for the world's only whale crier in Hermanus. That's Top Travel this Saturday night at 8:30, repeat Sunday at 1 p.m. on S3.
Makaka searching for their first victory to cement their plan of returning to the rooftop of Ibhola laseMzansi. Yet, the Natal Rich Boys believe that tears of joy belong to them. This is the Premier Soccer League promotional playoffs. Catch Baroka FC versus Richards Bay FC this Saturday, 8 June at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Sakina Kamwendo on SAFM.
Now, the two siblings from Soshanguve, north of Pretoria, who were shot and killed inside their shack on Sunday, the 2nd of June, have been laid to rest. Tinyiko and Fuma Mashaba, aged 4 and 7, were shot multiple times by an assailant who allegedly stormed their home at Changing Spot Informal Settlement while they were sleeping before setting it alight. Now, preliminary police investigation suggests that the perpetrator was after the girl's father, who was not at home during the incident. Speakers at the funeral called for justice. Phumzile Mlangeni was there.
Still shocked by the death of 5-year-old Ditebogo Junior Palane, who was shot and killed during a hijacking last month, the community of Soshanguve braved the cold morning to bid farewell to the two girls whose lives were cut short by gun violence. With the suspect still at large, the family says it is beginning to lose hope that anyone will be apprehended. The girl's grandfather, Abel Rachedi, says all he wants is for justice to be served.
All I want is justice to take its course. I know they won't come back, but all I need is justice. Oh, I don't have faith. Just because the person who did this is a foreigner. I think by now he went back to Zimbabwe or Mozambique.
The mother of the siblings says she is fearful that the suspect might come back for the rest of the family. There was a heavy police presence at the funeral, attended by hundreds of mourners. A team of seasoned detectives led by the Deputy Provincial Commissioner has been appointed. Safety MEC in Gauteng, Faith Mazibuko, says the police are working around the clock to find the perpetrator.
As communities, we believe these children must be raised in proper environments and they grow up to be better adults. Fortunately, 2 young souls have been burnt to death by a criminal. And that criminal is still at large. Up until now, the police have not found that person. And as the provincial government, we should and indeed promise that the police will work around the clock in ensuring that they do arrest that perpetrator.
Learners from Lesedi Primary School came in their numbers to bid farewell to their friends. The school's deputy principal, Tsolofelo Demba, says they are devastated.
It was a girl child. Her dream was to become a soldier. And then I think as a country also, we lost a soldier in the making. And then we are very aggrieved. The parents are devastated. The learners are devastated. However, we have received support from the psychosocial support unit in the district.
Community members have once again called for the deployment of the army to clamp down on the gun violence which has plagued the township. Phumzile Mlangeni, SABC News, Soshanguve.
Well, let's take a moment to listen to your views now. Let's start with the voice notes.
Hi, Sakina. Good morning. This is Sepiso. I'm still battling to understand what is the government of national unity. What does it entail? What are the provisions of that government? But in any case, here's my point. South Africans are willing to forgive the grandchildren of their ancestors who oppressed the majority for 300 years, but then they are not willing to forgive, I quote, the 9 wasted years, or someone, as they claim that Gele sold South Africa to the Guptas. Yeah, South Africa is an amazing country, I must say. Happy Friday.
Good afternoon, Mam Sakina. Good afternoon to the listeners of SAFM. Mam Sakina, before President Nelson Mandela, he passed away, he warned us that the people shall govern. So now the people have spoken. The people of this country, they wanted a DA, IFP and the ANC to form a coalition government. Those criminals, opposition party, they must step aside. They must form their own coalition. Thank you. We need the government of the ANC and the DA and IFP. Nothing else. Thank you.
Good afternoon. With regards to this whole concept of national government of national unity, to me it doesn't make sense. The ANC is behaving as if it still has the majority, while it's only got 40%. I mean, why are they the ones dictating how the government should be and who the conditions? I thought when you go into negotiations, you give and take. There's compromises that should be made. So for me, I don't see this thing succeeding. Already the parties like the EFF have already dismissed it, and the DA says they won't be part of it as long as the EFF or MK is part of it. So for me, it just doesn't make sense. And yeah, I foresee failure. Eddie from Polokwane.
Good day. Bishop Makwana from Leboa Zone F. Sakina, I'm totally against a government of national unity. Whose unity are we talking about here? Because it needs someone to at least have 50 plus. So no one has outright majority. Who's going to lead that pack? Who? The ANC. They did not win votes. They don't have the majority. So it's not workable. I think that the DA, ANC, IFP, they could make a better government for South Africa. But to those who are continue to say they must go to the left, to MK and EFF, are those ANC members, especially COSATU members and SACP, who voted with Jacob Zuma so that they could remove Cyril Ramaphosa because they're no longer getting tenders and they are afraid that Cyril is now implementing state capture reports.
Well, thank you so much for all of those messages, and just a few quick ones from our X platform, that page as well. And Monwabisi says, SK, meanwhile, I'm still scratching my head about the current government situation. What happened to the George construction accident case? Any update there, or is it business as usual for the company? There shouldn't be, and I think we've all just been caught up in election fever, but certainly want to follow up on. Thanks, Monwabisi. Nati says the race card bandwagon parties have been disarmed of their populist ammunition, and now they are clutching at straws, trying to create a facade for relevancy. Zaki says, SK, I'm not well, as I don't see where we are going as a country, but what can I say if these politicians who are deciding on our future don't agree with each other? Let's go back and rerun the elections. That's all. Those are some of your views, and appreciate you sharing them with us.
We're delving deeper into the world of mining and engineering. From the coalface with Martin Creamer.
Afternoon, Saki.
All right, it's that time again on a Friday when an Update at Noon presents another update from the coalface with Martin Creamer, publishing editor of Engineering News and Mining Weekly. Good afternoon, Martin.
Good afternoon, Sakina.
Martin, platinum metals are once again coming to the rescue of the environment, and this time by protecting our water.
Yes, for decades now, our platinum group metals have kept the air of big cities clean. The way they do this is they catalyze activity inside the exhausts of vehicles, and they prevent pollution from getting into the air, which would really destroy a lot of the people there, because it can be deadly. And so what they are doing now is that they've discovered that there are so much problems within water. There are chemistries getting into water that cannot be broken down. And what they can do is they can provide, with the help of platinum group metals, what they call hydrogen peroxide. And this hydrogen peroxide in itself is very green, and it can be produced on site. And the wonderful news is that not only do we get our metals out of the ground here in South Africa, but the company that is working on this and is putting it into the market and is already on a site is right here in Johannesburg. And Marty Tech feels that this will be the next big exercise throughout the world that'll happen using platinum group metals. It'll come to the rescue of what is needed to make water cleaner, to take the germs out of water, to prevent disease spreading from water, as the world finds it very difficult at the moment to break down very hard to abate chemistries in the water.
Martin, anyone who buys a diamond in a jewelry store will soon be able to trace that diamond from the mine to the finger.
Yes, this is incredible news coming from Petra Diamonds. We know that Petra is very active in South Africa. They've got the Cullinan Diamond Mine. They've got the Finch Diamond Mine. They also mine in Tanzania. And what they are doing, they're responding to market demand. The diamond market wants traceability. When people go into a jewelry store, they want to know that the diamond that they're putting on their finger has not had any bad repercussion around the world. They want a record. And what can be given to them by the end of this year is absolute documentation, which will be blockchained, put in a cloud, where you will know the journey of that diamond from the mine, right through the polishing and cutting, right onto the finger. And you'll also know the benefits that that diamond has done in the mining host community, because there's a lot of activity. These mines assist with host communities. So the good that these diamonds do will be reflected. And why this is coming about is because the G7 nations have got sanctions. If you do not have traceability, full transparency, they sanction your diamonds. They won't let them into the country. So this is important for South Africa to get through this. It's a great step being done by Petra, and it will mean that, we always used to say, not everyone in the diamond industry is a crook, but all the crooks are in the diamond industry. And this will make sure that there's proper traceability. People know exactly where these diamonds come from. It will also help against laboratory developed diamonds because there's been competition from that. And these will show that the natural diamond does a lot for communities, does a lot of good, and it'll be all reflected very accurately and accessible by people buying diamonds.
Well, Martin will do this again next week. Martin Creamer will be back with another edition of At the Coalface, same time next Friday. And that's all our time. Thanks so much for being with us this afternoon. Please be safe, be warm, take care. And, of course, I hope to meet everyone back here on Monday. But right now, it's time for the latest news with Modupi Makhalimele.
Thank you very much, SK. The top stories this hour. The DA prepared to work with some parties and 2 arrested after a security threat at Cape Town International. A very good afternoon. The DA says it'll hold discussions with other political parties in a bid to constructively engage on the ANC's proposal to form a government of national unity. ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa made the announcement on the proposal last night following a protracted meeting of the party's top leadership. The DA, with nearly 22% of support, is currently part of the multi-party charter, which was formed to keep an